Welcome to the Beyond Physio podcast, where we help you move, excel, and inspire others on your journey to your next level with knowledge and advice from experts and testimonials from our like-minded community. Welcome to the Beyond Physio podcast. Today I have a guest of all guests. We have Michele Bruce, who is the owner or co-owner of Link Studios with locations in Ridgewood and in Montclair, New Jersey. Michele, pleasure to have you. Welcome to our show.
Thanh you very much.
Now,
Happy
Michele,
to be here.
Oh, glad. Yeah. So, Michele, I want to get into your journey because what really intrigued me about your to where you are, the process where you became who you are right now was you were actually in Pharma.
Yes.
And from there, as you put it, you went from suits to spandex in that journey towards Pilates.
Yes.
And then finally to Link. Can you talk to our
Sure.
audience about that?
Yeah. And I think it definitely helps me relate to my clients as well, because I am just a regular old person. After college, I went into the corporate world. I was a marketing major, sat behind a desk at a computer, and just like everybody else, had certain things going on in my body. In my case, it was a back issue that started when I was younger through dance. Started experiencing some pain in college. The pain got worse, obviously, because I was sitting at a desk all the time. So I started looking for a better way to be fit. What I was doing at the gym was not helping. I tried different things, classes, weights, anything. Nothing was helping. And then, saw an infomercial for Pilates, which actually, I still remember it was Daisy Fuentes, the actress.
Daisy Fuentes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And she talked about Windsor Pilates, which,
yes. Yeah.
funny enough, Mary Windsor was actually trained at the same place I was, which was Romana's Pilates in New York City. Romana being someone who worked with Joseph Pilates. Yes. And then him and his wife handed everything over to her. And I trained more under her daughter, Shari. And it was funny. And I actually met Mary Windsor once when she was in the studio in New York. She was California based. But yeah, through her tapes. Later, I started doing mat Pilates at my gym, realized there was more to it. And, sought out a studio in the town I lived in, which happened to be Montclair at the time. And once I got into the studio and did the equipment, and I learned that Pilates is way more than a mat, it got more and more interesting, and I got more and more intrigued. And then the happier ending is that I got more and more fit and less pain.
That's interesting. So, Michele, talk about, I know that the training for Pilates is quite extensive.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. Our training is officially 600 hours, but you have to have so many hours going in. We have 3 levels. What I loved about our training is it was very interactive. You weren't sitting in a classroom. It's very hands-on. And we did have tests. We did have written tests and everything. What I think made us very different than a lot of other ones I've looked into is the extensiveness of it. It was always safety first, then the exercise. And, this theme carried throughout, which was train the body in front of you. And through that, we learned about different conditions in the body, injuries in the body, everything from how to handle a woman who is pregnant to maybe somebody with a condition such as arthritis, osteo issues, everything. And you got to work with real clients, which was great. And I know there's some programs out there that are a lot shorter. I talked to somebody once who said, I'm online trained. And I'm like, I don't even know how that you do that.
Yeah.
We actually got to be clients ourselves with each other and practice on each other, but also work with real people. And I think that's the most important thing, is working with real people. I mean, there's a wonderful handful of people out there that are athletes, but most people who are working out are the average person, with average issues in their body. So that was important.
Yeah. Did you find, Michele, that because of the injuries you had from dance, that compelled you to take Pilates and want to do stuff with people who are injured as well?
Yes, to a certain extent. I mean, I always love to move, and being curious as to why things happen. That's, like I said, that's what had helped me to seek out Pilates. And once I found, I'm like, wait, I'm just an average person who can do this, and I'm feeling super strong as I'm advancing in age, where I think a lot of people think, oh, I have knee pain now, I have shoulder pain now, I have back pain now. Well, I'm getting older, I'm 40, I'm this and that. And I should probably say I'm 49 and I have zero pain from any of those issues now because I've worked on them. So yeah, there was a definite interest in helping people, which sounds a little corny, but I'm like, I'm not special, and I was able to get there,
right,
and stay there. And more importantly,
I think what's cool, what I always found fascinating about Pilates, and I've taken courses and I've spoken to a lot of friends of mine who've gotten into Pilates at a very deep level, is that it definitely mirrors the model that we have at Next Level, which is very a whole person, whole body approach.
yes.
Can you talk more about that when you see somebody come in for maybe their first session Pilates? What does it typically look like for you and your team?
Well, and it's funny you say that, because the way they train us to look at the whole body, we always kind of joke that as soon as you walk through the door, I'm already assessing you. And almost it drove us crazy when you're training and you're learning you learn a lot at once, right? So I'm training in New York City. I'm watching people walk down the street. I'm sitting at a cafe and watching people walk by, and you just want to fix everybody, so to speak. So yeah, when a client walks through the door, I'm already assessing them. I'm looking at their imbalances. I'm looking at whether it's hunched shoulders, or maybe they're standing with a shift in their weight. And then once, I talk to them and they fill out their form and they tell me of issues that they may have, injuries, surgeries, all that good stuff. I have a series of very basic movements, we all do, where we look at their body as it moves. And then it's funny how some people will tell you, yeah, I have this, I have that. They forget about the 5 other things that might be going on in their body, but until they start moving, and that's where, movement heals, and it's good to keep moving, and it's important to keep moving. And, movement actually tells us so many things about our body, when you become self-aware.
Yeah, I would say
changes.
Yeah, for sure. And a couple of things you touched on, one of them being, I think a lot of people after a certain age do become anxious, afraid, maybe even reluctant to want to pursue anything, complacent, to want to do anything with fitness, because they're thinking that, oh, well, my arthritis, my sciatica, my shoulder issue, I don't want to mess those things up. And as a result, then end up doing nothing.
Right.
How do you walk people through that sort of like fear, anxiety to start something like Pilates?
Yeah. And we see it at all ages, to be honest with you. It's not just, the older clientele. And I should also mention, we have clients as young as teens. My oldest client is 86, and she is fantastic. Wow. She's got an open mind, which I think is really important. She's up for any type of challenge we throw her way. When we tell her things about her body, she listens and implements. And that's part of it. But yeah, sure, you're going to get people who are anxious, and it's just, I think that's a people skill. In addition to the teaching skill, is understanding that, not everybody comes in gung-ho, ready to move. And especially if you have an injury or an area of pain, people are oftentimes very reluctant to touch upon it. I don't have initials after my name. Nobody calls me doctor. So getting people to trust you is also challenging, right? Because we walk into a doctor, a physical therapist, for instance, and I know that you're an expert. I'm just Michele Bruce, Pilates instructor, or, fitness instructor. So, there's that level of trust. So I have a level of patience too with them. And if I see a reluctance, then I'll definitely dial it back and get them to that point and try to boost their confidence.
Yeah.
Because there needs to be confidence in movement, and being somebody who's dealt with pain, I get that. I was afraid, to move certain ways, but I was also frustrated because I had been very active. And so there's, every person who walks in the door is different, and I don't treat anybody the same, for sure.
I would say the same thing about us with our physio approach.
Right.
We don't take a cookie cutter approach. So
Never.
The same, like somebody can come in with a rotator cuff, and the next person can be a rotator cuff as well, or have one. And we're not going to treat them the same. It sounds like you guys do the same thing in Pilates and your approach.
Absolutely. And, even when I teach a class, we keep our classes small, which is one of the many things that sets us apart.
It's very different.
No more. We have apparatus. Of course, we're a full, traditional Pilates studio. But there's a lot of misconceptions of what Pilates is. And so we do work on the apparatus. I had a class today of 4 people, 4 very different people. One of them being a client that we share, actually. So my class today ranged from a 20-something, 2 20-somethings, a 50-something, and a 70-year-old. And they were all able to do a class with us, all together, mostly the same movements. Now, one thing you learn, of course, is your own modifications, but then I'm modifying them as they go. If one person is struggling with something, I'll give them, or I see somebody needs, to be pushed a little bit, I'll push them.
Yeah.
So that's the great thing about the small class size, is you can really tailor even a class to the individual Obviously more so in a private session, but even in a class, you can do it.
That's great. I love the small class size that you guys have, because I find, and I've heard from other people who've taken Pilates classes at more the corporate style or I guess big box corporate Pilates places. And I really think that attention to people in a small group is so critical. And like you said, making sure that the form is really where it needs to be. And I think you mentioned before how what sets you apart is really your focus on the form.
Yes. And it's not choreography. And, I've been to places like that. I've heard from some of my clients who have been to places like that you get into a big class and it's like, oh, okay, everybody do this, everybody do that. Everybody shouldn't be doing the same thing. And because they can't, exactly. It's very interesting. And it actually makes my job more interesting. And it doesn't, I had feared when I switched careers that I would get bored teaching the same thing day in and day out, but I don't. Never have. I've been doing this 15 years and every single day is different. The same client, I could see them 3 times in a week, is going to be different each day.
Yeah. Now, what's cool about what you do differently with Link also, and I want to go into this too, not only are you Pilates based, but you also have boxing and some other services. Can you talk about more about how Link got its name?
I like how you emphasize the link. Yeah. So we are, like I said, have been in business 15 years. Our first location in Emerson, New Jersey. That started out as a Pilates studio. And Alessandro, my partner, is a trained boxer. And he started a boxing program there. We opened Montclair about 5.5 years ago because I had a client base in Montclair. And we felt the need to have 2 locations. Why not? And then we moved our Emerson location just last year over to Ridgewood. And when we did that, we were able to expand a little bit, which was shocking during a pandemic. We took a chance and we wanted to build the boxing program because we really saw, I think, a lot of people attracted to it. We're not beating up on each other, but we, Alessandro especially, and he can speak more to this, and I'm learning it as well. He's teaching me as well. The fitness aspect. When he went to an old school gym in Vienna, Austria, where he grew up, they walked in and for 45 minutes minimum was their warm up. So that when they hit a person or a bag or whatever, they weren't hurting their joints. They weren't, injuring. You got to get your body ready to move. And so we really saw a link to boxing with Pilates and in movement in general. And then functional training just speaks to the functional movement of the body. I mean, that fits in with anything we do. So, we have clients who are just regular everyday people who go for walks or ride a bike or, some people play sports. And then we have the people who are more extensive in sports. We have the younger people who are doing sports as well as adults. And I've worked with professional athletes, professional dancers, everything right down to, just the average person who wants to stay fit and pain-free.
That's a really cool way to combine different ways of movement, I think.
Yeah.
And I love that you have this emphasis on the myofascial training. And I think that's lacking in a lot of different activities like we talked about. And that's movement basically in rotation for our nerds out there, the transverse plane, if you want to go that technical. But talk more about that and how you incorporate that into your training methods.
And I think it all boils down to what we said before, and that is looking at the whole body. So if someone comes to me with shoulder pain, I'm not looking at their shoulder. I'm looking at the rest of their body and how it responds to movement. And I've been a guest here in your office, actually in 2 of your offices. And Alessandro went to the Woodcliff Lake location and I came here and was treated as a client to see what you do. And it was the same thing as assessing the body, watching it move, not poking and prodding, but watching it move. And I have to say, the 2 doctors I worked with here were able to pinpoint all of my issues without me telling them. I didn't say a word. I was testing them.
Yes.
And they got it spot on perfect, all of the issues that I have in my body. Because, again, I'm normal and have issues. But, yeah, it's working with the way the body moves.
Yeah.
And looking at the relationship in your body and to be corny on my side, how it links together.
Yes.
And, if you have a shoulder issue, what's happening if it's your right shoulder, what's happening down on your left side?
Yeah.
In your hip area? And it's really interesting. And, talking to somebody and using the big words doesn't always work, but I'm like, look at your shoulder and look at what your hip does when you do that. And it's really, and people find it fascinating in their own bodies, right? When you point it out, they're like, wow, I never realized that.
Yeah. One of the things that we love to do, especially during that first visit and even subsequent visits, is filming our clients as they do move, so they can see for themselves. And oftentimes they're very surprised that their neck is tilted to one side or that their shoulder is lower on the other side. But, as you and I discussed, the first step towards getting improvement in movement is to be aware of it. And that then begins a process of healing, recovery, and being able to do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. When I first started, and I can speak to it personally, and I share this story with my clients so they understand that it's totally normal, that when somebody points something out to you, I remember having low back pain, and that's why I found it. And I remember when I started strengthening the muscles in my upper back, all of a sudden I had upper back pain, but it was muscle fatigue. It wasn't, so I'd be sitting at my desk at work, freaking out, going, oh, I have upper back problems now? This isn't fair. But it wasn't. It was just me getting stronger, being more aware of those muscles, finally using them in a proper way. So halfway through my workday, I would feel some fatigue or some soreness from my workout the day before. And that was all very normal. And, it's a process. And asking people to have patience is sometimes difficult.
Bergen County or Essex County?
Both. I deal with
exactly.
both. North Jersey. It's North Jersey.
For sure.
Look, I'm born and raised in New Jersey. I get it. I'm Central Jersey, but I get it. Yeah. I've lived in North Jersey my whole adult life. And it's, everybody wants that magic pill. And I get that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so there's a level of empathy and understanding that I have because, again, I've been through it. Mm-hmm. It's normal.
Now, you mentioned before how, and I love that you have classes where you have a varied age group, age range. Are there things that you have found that you do differently for people who are older to start off with versus people who are younger, or just to depend on the level that they're at coming in?
And that's exactly it. It really depends on the person, because I had a woman, a good example, who came to me last week. I think people who are older tend to lean more towards the private sessions first, maybe their first time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I even recommend it. So if I speak to somebody through email or phone and they tell me that they have a bunch of issues or injuries or, something going, maybe it's a chronic problem, I might suggest a private session first and then assess from there. This woman came in, she agreed. It was actually her idea to do the private session. It was good, but she's a very fit 70-year-old woman. And, she's very active and mobile. She also listens and takes instruction well, which sometimes is it factors in to some degree.
Big time.
I can't put somebody in a class who's all over the place. It distracts from the class and they're not going to get the most out of it, which is the most important thing. One private session and she was in a class the next week. I put her in a class. She was fine. Because again, our class size is small. So I can also give her, and it's also an environment, anybody who's in the class, everybody started there. Mm-hmm. So I have to say there's a support from other people. If I have somebody who's more experienced, I might put the new person next to them. And a lot of times they'll help them out or give them, hey, when I did that, this helped me or this. And I love it because it's a completely supportive environment. Everybody gets it. Everybody's been there. It's like, power in numbers.
So it's almost like you're actually building community within your own
classes. Yeah, definitely. I love that too. And, people, especially, in whether it's the geographical area, and I always say, well, they're all suffering together, so they all bond. Because at the end of the day, it is exercise,
Yeah, for sure. As far as like where you see Link heading, are you looking to expand further, or you're pretty happy with Ridgewood and Montclair?
I mean, right now we're very happy because we just opened Ridgewood, but we've had 2 locations now for almost 6 years, and hey, I'd always be happy to expand. Yeah. I mean, more business is always good. Sure. But I think it's important for, we're also not stingy people. I don't know if that's the right word to use, and that we're always looking to share. Mm-hmm. I want to share my knowledge. I can't do this forever. I mean, I hope I'm doing it for a long time, but, realistically, we can't do it forever. So we talk about that all the time, Alessandro and I, about sharing our knowledge with other people, with other instructors, hoping to maybe encourage people to get into it and become instructors. We have a client who started with one of our instructors at 11 years old. She had severe scoliosis. She was severe enough that she had a surgery. Mm-hmm. She's now, I think, 20 and unbelievably fit and strong and just crazy, still mind-boggling story to look at, and so satisfying to see her achieve this. It was amazing. And, somebody like that, I could see her becoming an instructor, or, it's just so interesting because a lot of people do find it, right, through their own problems, issues, whatever. But
exactly. It's funny because I would say even with our model too, we really do believe in sharing that knowledge, not only with clients, but also our team members. We're always looking to grow and get better at what we do. And I know that we can always fill gaps in as the years come, to knowledge gaps, that is, just because things change over time.
100%.
And it sounds like Pilates too, you guys are really on top of trying to get better.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing too is, I've been doing this 15 years. I'm not the same instructor I was 15 years ago. I'm not the same instructor I was 5 years ago. Why? Because you can always learn more, just like any other industry. And I've met people who don't grow and change. And I was like, don't you get bored with yourself? But it's so important to our own, because we're working in the physical industry, and that's so important, but also sharing the knowledge, not just with other instructors, like you said, but the client themselves. I don't want somebody to be dependent on me. If you can only get to me once a week, that's fine. But I'm going to give you things that you can do throughout your day, throughout the week, things you can do at home, things you can even pepper into your day at work to keep going and keep moving to stay healthy. And it shouldn't be limited to that 1 hour workout you do with me,
Yeah, I think education is often the missing component for a lot of our clients, where they've been to other places, other PTs, maybe never other trainers, where nobody really told them what was going on. Nobody explained to them how things actually work. So they're left feeling kind of sort of lost, saying, well, my knee's not getting better, but nobody really told me what was really going on.
Right.
Do you find the same thing?
People
with Pilates
are smart.
as well?
Yeah, people are smart. And when it comes to their own body, they're interested. So I think just giving them an overview is a disservice to the client, or just teaching, like I used the word choreography before, because sometimes you go into an exercise class, okay, do this, now do this, now do this. And it's all instruction, but there's no explanation. And one thing, again, that I've been saying this a lot, but things that set us apart are that level of instructions, but being able to speak to the client and explain something. And I'll spend the extra time with you, even after a class, if I see something you're struggling with, because if you improve, that's good for me. To be selfish, it's good for our business if our clients improve, right? Sure, it keeps them coming back. It makes them tell their friends. And, most important, makes them healthier and stronger. That's the goal.
Now, Michele, you and I are both busy business owners, and you and I are both over 40. So I know
a smidge.
For me, I find that I have to get my workouts in because it keeps me sane.
Yes.
It's also a big part of our core values at Next Level. And for me, I also look at it as a way for me to set the example for my clients, saying that, listen, I get that, you want to get to this level. It's taken me a while to get here and maintain this. How do you keep your own fitness in check over
Well, it's funny because I was just speaking to one of your therapists about it. And, there are days it's hard.
Very hard.
If you have a busy day. I don't work out with my clients. I don't stand in front of them and exercise and show them what to do. I use my words to tell them what to do. Because what I'm doing physically is walking around and correcting them, or standing if it's a private session with the client. So yeah, it's hard and it's not hard because I do love to move. So even if it's just a good, strong walk, because I love to be outside. And I work in a studio with an apparatus. So I really don't have a good excuse not to work out.
Right.
But as you know, it's your place of work. So sometimes you need to get out. So I work at the Montclair Studios in downtown Montclair, busy area, very interesting area. So a lot of times if I just have a half an hour, it won't be working out in the studio. It's getting outside, getting fresh air. Fresh air is important. I promote that to my clients too. Sometimes just walking up and down the avenue and, maybe stopping to eat. But, getting that time in is so important because that's another thing we feel strongly about. There's one thing that's bothered me over the years is seeing instructors, never at our place, by the way, but in other places, who don't look the part. And I always say, would you go to a hairdresser who had, straggly, messy hair? It doesn't, how can I stand there in front of a client and tell them to do X, Y, Z if I'm not doing it myself?
It doesn't reflect on your business.
No. And I want to be able to speak. I've done every exercise that I teach, and continue to do it. My clients ask me, what do you do to work out? I said, I do what you do.
That's so funny. I had a conversation with a client this morning, and knowing what he had going on with his diagnosis, I was actually doing exercise that I thought would benefit him. And so I said, hey, listen, I'm sharing in the pain this morning that I did on myself. You're going to get a taste of it as well, which he really appreciated because he knew that I wasn't just talking the talk. I was really living out what I preach.
Yeah. And it's funny. So we also, if I have free time, so now that we have these 2 locations and we expanded Ridgewood, Alessandro doesn't really have the time to come to Montclair much. But I teach in both locations, more in Montclair, but sometimes in Ridgewood. So if I'm there and there's, say, a class starting and I don't have a client, I'll jump in a class.
Oh, I love that.
So that also, I think, is beneficial. And so do our other instructors. If we're not working, we'll jump in a class. And I've done that in other places where, I've had other instructors take my classes. I used to work at a place in New York City where we all did that. And I think the clients love that.
They do love that.
Because they realize, oh, wait, you're doing this too? And also seeing you struggle, I think, gives them a little satisfaction. So if I see them a little winded in a class, I did a boxing class last night and it was just a long day and I was very tired. I was getting a bit winded. And I think there's some satisfaction in seeing your instructor get winded.
For sure.
But it's also inspirational. And that's, we do it for our own benefit, but it's also a good inspiration to our clients to kind of show them, look, we do this too.
And the camaraderie too.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a different, we're not standing up on a soapbox going, I'm the instructor. I do this. I'm different, better than you. No, we're the same. We're absolutely the same.
We used to do a lot of group workouts with our staff too. And there's something about suffering and sweating together.
Well, that's what I said about my clients. They suffer together. So it does create a bond. Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Michele, thank you so much for coming on our show. I really appreciate having you in.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Yeah. How can people find out more about you, Alessandro, your team, your business, Link Studios?
So I should also mention, in case anybody is interested, right now we are not doing boxing in Montclair. It's only in Ridgewood because I am not a trained boxer yet. And we're also on a second floor. So yeah, find our website's probably the best way, which is thelinkstudios.com. You can call, you can text, you can email. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook as The Link Studios, again in Montclair and Ridgewood. And that's usually the best way.
Great. Thanks a lot, Michele.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jerry.
And that's the end of our Beyond Physio podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, have a great day. Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode. It really does mean a lot to us. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or comment if you got at least 1 or 2 helpful insights or takeaways to help you get to your next level.